My name is Rachel Morrison, and I'm 34 years old. What would you do if you found your own sister living in your vacation home, claiming you were the intruder? That's exactly what happened to me after driving 4 hours to my mountain cabin for a desperately needed break. Instead of peace and solitude, I found my sister, her husband, and his parents sprawled across my living room like they owned the place. When I knocked on my own door, she had the audacity to call me a leech and threatened to call the cops on me. The best part? I told her to go ahead and try. What happened next turned her entire world upside down, and trust me, you'll want to hear every detail. Before we dive in, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me tell you how this all started. I work as a marketing director for a tech startup in Denver. For the past year, I've been pulling 70-hour weeks, managing 3 major product launches while my team was cut in half due to budget constraints. My life had become an endless cycle of conference calls, spreadsheets, and lukewarm coffee at 10 p.m. 3 years ago, when I finally got promoted to director, I did something my family thought was insane. Instead of buying a fancy car or moving to a bigger apartment, I bought a small cabin in the mountains near Aspen. That cabin wasn't a gift or inheritance, it was 10 years of skipped vacations and ramen dinners. Every bonus, every tax refund, every freelance project went into that savings account labeled Freedom Fund. My family never understood it. At every holiday gathering, my mother would sigh dramatically and ask when I was going to settle down like Megan. My younger sister Megan, the golden child who married her college boyfriend Derek at 23 and immediately started popping out kids. She was living the life my parents deemed correct: suburban house, minivan, PTA meetings. "Why do you need a whole cabin just for yourself?" my mother would ask. "It's so selfish." Selfish. That word followed me everywhere. Selfish for choosing career over marriage. Selfish for not wanting children. Selfish for buying property instead of being available to babysit Megan's kids every weekend. But that cabin? It was my sanctuary, the one place where I could breathe without judgment, where success wasn't measured by my relationship status or reproductive choices. It was mine, earned through my own sweat and sacrifice. I had no idea that my selfishness was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in March. I'd just wrapped up a product launch that generated $2 million in revenue, but instead of celebrating, I found myself crying in my car in the parking garage. Not sad tears, exhausted ones. The kind where your body just gives up and decides to leak from the eyes. That's when I decided. 2 weeks at the cabin. No laptop, no work phone, just books, wine, and absolute silence. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I deliberately didn't tell anyone where I was going. I needed real peace. The last time I'd mentioned a cabin trip to my family, Megan had shown up with her kids for a fun surprise visit, turning my quiet weekend into a babysitting marathon. I spent Friday preparing, grocery shopping for comfort food I never allowed myself during work weeks, downloading books I'd been meaning to read for 2 years. I even bought an actual paper journal, thinking maybe I'd try that meditation journaling thing my therapist kept suggesting. Saturday morning, I loaded up my Subaru with supplies and a week's worth of comfortable clothes, the kind with elastic waistbands that my mother would call giving up clothes. The weather forecast promised clear skies and cool mountain air. Perfect for hiking, reading on the deck, maybe finally learning to paint with those watercolors I'd bought 3 years ago. As I locked my apartment and headed for the highway, I felt lighter with each mile. No meetings, no emergencies, no family drama. Just me and my cabin, the place I'd worked so hard to earn. If only I'd known what was waiting for me at the end of that drive, I might have turned around. Or maybe not. Sometimes you need to face the storm to finally see the sun. The 4-hour drive from Denver to my cabin usually feels therapeutic. This time, something felt off from the moment I hit the mountain roads. About 2 hours in, My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret, my nearest cabin neighbor. Hi, Rachel. Just wanted to let you know there's been some activity at your place. Thought you'd hired contractors? Contractors? I hadn't hired anyone. My stomach did a little flip, but I rationalized it away. Maybe the property management company I used for maintenance had scheduled something and forgotten to tell me. I texted back. No contractors scheduled. What kind of activity? Margaret's response came quickly. Several cars. Looks like a family. They said they had permission. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Who would claim to have permission? I tried calling the property management company, but they were closed for the weekend. The last hour of the drive felt like 3. Every possibility ran through my mind: squatters, thieves, maybe even a booking mix-up, though I hadn't listed it on any rental sites yet. As I turned onto the private road leading to my cabin, I could see vehicles in the distance. Not contractor trucks. Regular cars. 3 of them, parked in my driveway like they belonged there. My heart started racing when I recognized the blue Honda Pilot. That was Megan's car. Relief mixed with confusion. Okay, so it was family, not strangers. But why? How? I hadn't given her a key. I hadn't invited her. Hell, I hadn't even told her I was coming up here. Then I saw Derek's truck, and another car I didn't recognize. Looked like something an older couple would drive. That's when I saw it. My sister's SUV in my driveway, and my confusion started turning into something else entirely. I parked behind Megan's Honda and sat there for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. The front door of my cabin was open. Not just unlocked, wide open, like someone who lived there had just stepped out to grab something from their car. Walking up the path, I could hear voices and laughter from inside. Through the window, I saw them. Megan, Derek, and his parents, Barbara and Tom Sullivan, sitting around my dining table, eating dinner off my plates, using my grandmother's silverware that I kept in the china cabinet. They weren't acting like guests. They were acting like residents. Barbara was coming out of my kitchen with a casserole dish, one of mine, filled with what looked like lasagna. Derek had his feet up on my coffee table, beer in hand, watching something on the TV I'd mounted just last summer. But the real shock came when I noticed the details. There were family photos on the mantel, their family photos. Megan's kids' toys were scattered across the living room floor. A load of laundry was running in my washer. They'd even moved my books to make room for their belongings on the shelves. They were eating dinner at my table, using my dishes, like they owned the place. I stood there at the window, invisible to them in the evening darkness, watching this bizarre dinner scene. Megan was laughing at something Barbara said, completely at ease. Derek clinked his beer bottle against Tom's in some kind of toast. My key didn't work in the lock. They'd changed it. They'd actually changed the locks on my cabin. That's when the exhaustion turned to anger. Not hot anger, cold, calculated anger. The kind that makes you very, very calm. I took out my phone and started recording. I knocked on my own door. 3 firm knocks. The laughter inside stopped immediately. Megan opened the door, and the look on her face went from confusion to annoyance to something almost like triumph in the span of 2 seconds. She was wearing my favorite cabin sweater, the cashmere one I'd bought in Aspen last winter. "What do you want, Leech?" she said, loud enough for everyone inside to hear. "This is private property." I kept my phone recording, holding it at my side. "Megan, this is my cabin. What are you doing here?" She actually laughed. "Your cabin? You mean the family cabin that sits empty 11 months a year while you're off playing career woman? I don't think so. I own this property. I have the deed. You need to leave." That's when Derek appeared behind her, trying to look intimidating. Barbara and Tom crowded into the doorway too, like some kind of twisted welcoming committee. "You should go," Derek said, "before someone calls the cops." "Please do," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Call them right now." Megan's eyes flashed. "Fine, I will. You're trespassing and harassing my family." She pulled out her phone with theatrical flair. "I'm calling 911. This cabin sits empty while families need homes. You're so selfish, Megan spat at me while dialing. I stepped back from the door, making sure I was clearly on the porch, not trying to enter. Please do call them, and make sure to tell them you've changed the locks on property you don't own. Barbara gasped a little at that, but Megan was already talking to the dispatcher, her voice high and distressed. Yes, there's a woman here harassing us at our vacation home. She's unstable and won't leave. I sat down on my own porch chair and waited. This was going to be interesting. While we waited for the police, Megan decided to explain why she deserved my cabin more than I did. She stood in the doorway like she was guarding her territory, with Derek and his parents flanking her. You want to know why we're here? She said, voice dripping with self-righteousness. Because it's criminal for you to hoard a 3-bedroom cabin when you're just one person, one selfish, childless person who doesn't even use it. Barbara chimed in. We needed a place for spring break with the grandkids. Hotels are so expensive, and this was just sitting here empty. Mom and Dad agree. Family should share resources based on need, Megan added. And we need it more than you do. You have your fancy apartment in Denver. What do you need with a second home? I kept recording, staying calm. So you broke in? We didn't break in, Derek said quickly. We found a way in, to family property. That only I pay taxes on? That only my name is on the deed? Megan rolled her eyes. God, you're such a capitalist. Everything is mine, mine, mine with you. This is why you're alone, Rachel. You don't understand family. I understand that family doesn't include breaking and entering, I said. We've been here 2 weeks, Barbara announced proudly, like this was an accomplishment. Made it real homey for the kids. They love it here. 2 weeks. They'd been living in my cabin for 2 weeks while I was killing myself at work, dreaming of this escape. And you changed the locks? For safety, Derek said. Can't have random people walking in. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. But I just nodded, still recording, waiting for the sound of sirens in the distance. I stood up slowly, keeping my movements deliberate and non-threatening. The recorder on my phone was still running, and I made sure to hold it visibly now. Please repeat that on camera. You're refusing me entry to my own property? Megan's face went red. Stop recording me. That's illegal. We're outside, Megan. Colorado is a one-party consent state. I can record in public and on my own property. I'd learned that from a legal podcast during one of those endless commutes. Barbara tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. Don't touch me or my property, please. You're being ridiculous, Megan said. Put the phone away and we can talk about this like adults. We are talking. You've admitted to entering my property without permission, changing my locks, and living here for 2 weeks. I just want to make sure we're all clear on the facts. Derek stepped forward. You need to leave now, or things are going to get complicated. Complicated how? I asked calmly. Are you threatening me? No one's threatening anyone, Tom Sullivan finally spoke up, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe we should all just calm down. I am calm, I said. I'm sitting on my own porch, waiting for the police your wife called to sort out why I can't enter my own cabin. Megan's kids appeared in the doorway, Jaden, 8, and Emma, 6. They looked confused and a little scared. Aunt Rachel? Emma said in a small voice. Why is everyone mad? Before I could answer, Megan pulled them back inside. Kids, go watch TV in the bedroom. Aunt Rachel is having one of her episodes. Episodes? Like I was the unstable one here. I took a deep breath, maintaining my composure. The sirens were getting closer now. Perfect. I couldn't wait for the officers to arrive. The 911 call had been pure theater. Megan stood in the doorway, phone on speaker so everyone could hear her performance. Yes, officer, she's still here. She's recording us without permission and scaring my children. We're just trying to enjoy our family vacation, and she shows up making wild claims. I could hear the dispatcher asking for the address. Megan rattled it off confidently, like she'd been receiving mail here for years. How long have you been at this location, ma'am? The dispatcher asked. 2 weeks. It's our family's cabin. Not technically a lie, but not the truth either. Barbara nodded approvingly at her daughter-in-law's performance. Derek stood with his arms crossed, trying to look like the protective husband. Tom had disappeared inside, probably to hide any obvious evidence of their breaking in. The woman outside, does she have any weapons? The dispatcher continued. I don't think so, but she seems unstable. She keeps saying she owns the place, but she doesn't even have a key. That was rich. I didn't have a key because they'd changed the locks. Officers are 5 minutes out, the dispatcher said. Stay inside and keep the doors locked. After Megan hung up, she smirked at me. Hope you have a good lawyer. I do, actually, I said, but I won't need one today. Derek laughed. You're delusional. We have established residency. 2 weeks makes us legal tenants in Colorado. That's not how that works, I said, but I didn't elaborate. Let them dig their hole deeper. I moved my car to the street so the police would have room to park, then sat on the porch steps. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky purple and orange. It would have been beautiful if not for the circumstances. Perfect. I couldn't wait for the officers to arrive. Can you believe the audacity? My own sister calling the cops on me at my cabin. If you've ever dealt with entitled family members who think your property is family property, hit that like button. And what would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's see what happens when the police actually show up. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and I recognized Officer Martinez immediately. He'd helped me 2 years ago when I'd reported a break-in at the cabin. Turned out to be a confused hiker, but Martinez had been thorough and professional. Megan practically ran out to meet them, already talking before they'd fully exited their vehicles. Officers, thank God you're here. This woman won't leave us alone. She's harassing my family during our vacation. Martinez's partner, a younger officer named Brooks, took out his notepad while Martinez looked between Megan and me. I saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes. Ma'am, he said to me, can you step over here, please? I walked over calmly while Megan continued her performance for Officer Brooks. She just showed up and started making demands, scaring my children. We've been here 2 weeks peacefully, and now this. By now, 3 of my neighbors had come out to watch. Margaret from next door, the Johnsons from across the street, and old Mr. Chen from 2 houses down. Great. An audience. Megan loved an audience. Ms. Morrison, Officer Martinez said to me quietly, this is your cabin, isn't it? I remember the break-in report from 2022. Yes, officer, I own this property. I have all the documentation on my phone. He nodded. And them? He gestured toward Megan and her family. That's my sister. I didn't give her permission to be here. I've been in Denver working. Came up today to find they've changed my locks. Martinez's eyebrows went up. Changed the locks? Ma'am, Officer Brooks called to Megan, can you prove ownership of this property? Megan's confidence wavered just slightly. It's family property. My sister is just being difficult because we didn't ask her first. The neighbors were recording now. This was about to get very interesting. I pulled out my phone and opened my documents folder. Thank God for cloud storage and my obsessive need to digitize everything. Officer Martinez, here's the deed to the property, purchased 3 years ago in my name only. I showed him the screen, then swiped. Here are my property tax receipts for the last 3 years, all paid by me. Here's my homeowner's insurance policy, and here's my driver's license matching the name and address on all these documents. Martinez examined each document carefully while Brooks watched Megan's face grow paler with each swipe. Ms. Sullivan, Brooks said to Megan, do you have any documentation showing your right to be here? We're family. She's my sister. Family shares. That's not what I asked, Brooks interrupted. Do you have any legal documentation? A rental agreement? Written permission? Anything? Derek stepped forward. We don't need documentation to visit family property. Actually, you do, Martinez said. If the legal owner says you don't have permission and you've changed the locks. He looked at me. Ma'am, did you give them permission to change your locks? Absolutely not. I didn't even know they were here until an hour ago. Margaret, my neighbor, called out from her yard. Officers, I can confirm that's Rachel's cabin. She's owned it for 3 years. These folks showed up 2 weeks ago saying Rachel gave them permission to stay. That's what they told us too, Mr. Johnson added. Thought it was strange Rachel didn't mention it, but… Megan was sweating now, despite the cool mountain air. Barbara had gone silent, and Tom was nowhere to be seen. The kids were watching from the window, and I felt bad for them. None of this was their fault. Here's the deed, tax records for 3 years, and utility bills in my name, I said, showing Officer Martinez my phone again. There's something else, I said, pulling up my security app. I have cameras installed. They're motion activated and upload to the cloud. Megan's face went white. You… what? Officer, here's footage from 2 weeks ago showing them breaking in. I played the video on my phone, angling it so both officers could see. The timestamp was clear. March 5th, 2:30 p.m. The video showed Derek using some kind of tool on my back door while Megan kept watch. Tom Sullivan was clearly visible carrying suitcases inside. That's breaking and entering, Officer Brooks said quietly. The next clip showed them changing the locks the following day. A locksmith van was in the driveway, and Derek was handing cash to the technician. Officer, here's footage from 2 weeks ago showing them breaking in, I said, playing another clip. Martinez turned to Megan. Ma'am, you told dispatch this was your family cabin. You said you'd been here legitimately for 2 weeks. It is family property. Megan was getting shrill now. She doesn't even use it. It sits empty while we needed a place to stay. That's not how property law works, Martinez said. Ms. Morrison, do you want to press charges? Derek stepped between Megan and the officers. Wait, this is all a misunderstanding. Rachel said we could use the cabin. Tell them, Rachel. I never said that. I haven't spoken to any of you in 2 months, and that was at Christmas dinner. Barbara finally emerged from the cabin, probably realized hiding inside looked worse. Officers, surely this can be resolved within the family. No need for charges. The neighbors were still recording. Mr. Chen had actually pulled out a lawn chair. This was better than cable for him. Ma'am, Martinez said to Megan, you need to explain why you told the locksmith you owned this property. Megan's entire demeanor changed. The righteous anger melted into desperate bargaining, her voice shifting from accusatory to pleading. Officers, this is just a family misunderstanding. Rachel and I, we talked about this months ago. She said the cabin was available for family use. I said no such thing, I replied calmly. You did, at Christmas. You said… She was scrambling now. You said families should support each other. I said that when you asked me for another loan, which I refused, by the way. Derek jumped in. We've been having financial troubles. We just needed a place to decompress. Rachel has so much and we… She promised, we're family, this is just a misunderstanding. Megan interrupted her husband, tears starting to form. Classic Megan, when confrontation fails, cry. Barbara tried a different approach. Officers, the children have been so happy here. Surely you won't traumatize them by throwing us out like criminals. You are criminals, Margaret called out from her yard. You broke into her house. More neighbors had gathered now. The Petersons, the Walkers, even the usually reclusive Mrs. Kim. Everyone had their phones out. Ma'am, Officer Brooks addressed Megan. Did you or did you not tell the locksmith you owned this property? It's family property. That's not an answer. Did you lie to the locksmith? Tom Sullivan finally reappeared, looking defeated. Officers, we didn't know. Megan told us Rachel gave permission. We thought it was all arranged. Barbara turned on her husband. Tom, don't… I'm not going to jail for this, Barb. Megan said it was fine. She said Rachel never uses it anyway, so it wasn't really stealing. The word stealing hung in the air. Megan looked at her father-in-law with betrayal written across her face. Actually, officers, I said, pulling up another app on my phone, there's one more thing. The cabin isn't sitting empty. I rent it out. Megan's tears stopped mid-sob. You… what? I have a booking through Airbnb starting Monday. A family from Texas paid $3,000 for a week. I showed Officer Martinez the confirmation. They arrive in 48 hours. You never said you were renting it, Derek accused. I don't need to clear my business decisions with you, but this means you've not only trespassed and committed breaking and entering, you've potentially cost me $3,000 in rental income and could damage my ratings as a host. Officer Brooks was taking notes. That's fraud charges on top of breaking and entering. I have paying guests arriving in 48 hours who've already paid $3,000, I repeated for emphasis. The neighbors were murmuring among themselves. Mrs. Kim called out, I wondered why you hadn't been up lately, Rachel. These folks told me you gave them the cabin for the month. They told me the same thing, Mr. Peterson added. Said you felt guilty about having so much space to yourself. Megan was cornered now. Every lie was being exposed in front of an audience. Barbara was stepping away from her daughter-in-law, creating physical distance. Tom was already heading toward their car. Ms. Sullivan, Officer Martinez said formally, you're looking at criminal trespass, breaking and entering, fraud, and potentially theft of services if Ms. Morrison has to refund her guests. Do you understand the situation you're in? Derek pulled Megan aside, whispering frantically. I heard him hiss. You said she never rents it out. You said no one would know. The truth was becoming crystal clear to everyone watching. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a calculated theft. Officer Martinez suggested calling our parents to help resolve the situation before formal charges were filed. Megan eagerly agreed, probably thinking Mom and Dad would take her side like they always did. 20 minutes later, Dad's truck pulled up. Mom was with him, and they both looked confused and concerned. Dad's face went from worried to shocked as he took in the scene. Police cars, gathered neighbors, and Megan in tears. What's going on here? Dad asked, looking between us. Megan, what have you done? This is Rachel's property, Dad said after Officer Martinez explained the situation. Mom immediately went to Megan. There must be some mistake. Megan wouldn't... She broke into my cabin, Mom, changed the locks, has been living here for 2 weeks. Dad looked at Megan. Is this true? Dad, she doesn't even use it. It's not fair that she has all this space while we're struggling. That's not, Megan, that's not how ownership works, Dad said slowly, like he was explaining to a child. You can't just take what isn't yours because you think it's unfair. You always take her side, Megan accused. There are no sides here. There's legal and illegal. You broke into your sister's property. Mom was quieter now, processing. Megan, honey, tell me you didn't actually break in. We had to. She would have said no if we asked. The admission hung in the air. Even Mom couldn't defend that logic. Tom Sullivan approached my father. We didn't know, honestly. Megan told us it was arranged. Dad shook his head. Tom, you're a grown man. You didn't think to verify before moving into someone else's property? The crowd of neighbors was growing. This was the most excitement the mountain community had seen in years. Margaret stepped forward, addressing the officers directly. I'd like to make a statement. I've been Rachel's neighbor for 3 years. She's a responsible owner who maintains her property and has never caused any problems. 2 weeks ago, she continued, these people showed up. The woman, Megan, told me Rachel had given them the cabin for a month while she was too busy with work. I thought it was strange because Rachel always lets me know when someone will be staying here, but I figured it was family. Mr. Johnson joined in. They told us Rachel gave her the cabin. We thought it was weird, but family business, you know? Mrs. Kim added her testimony. I have a ring camera that faces the street. I have footage of them arriving with a U-Haul, like they were moving in permanently. She told us Rachel gave her the cabin. We thought it was weird, Mr. Chen said, still in his lawn chair. The woman, she complained about Rachel constantly, said she was selfish, said she didn't deserve the cabin, made us all uncomfortable. Megan was shrinking with each testimony. The image she'd tried to project, the poor sister given permission to use the empty cabin, was crumbling publicly. Officer Brooks was documenting everything. So multiple witnesses heard Ms. Sullivan claim she had permission, but also heard her disparaging the owner? She called Rachel a rich bitch just yesterday, Mrs. Kim added. Said it was about time someone put her in her place. Derek grabbed Megan's arm. You told the whole neighborhood? Barbara was backing toward their car now, pulling Tom with her. We should go. This doesn't concern us anymore. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and Megan stood condemned. Barbara Sullivan stopped her retreat to the car and turned on Megan with the fury only a mother-in-law could muster. You lied to us too? You said she gave you permission. You made us accomplices to breaking and entering. Mom Sullivan, Megan started. Don't you, Mom Sullivan me. We could go to jail. Tom's on the church board. I'm in the women's league. Our reputation. Barbara's voice was rising with each word. Tom found his voice too. We gave you money for the locksmith. That makes us part of this crime. Derek looked stunned. Mom, Dad, let's just calm down. You said she gave you permission. You lied to us too? Barbara turned on her son. Did you know? Did you know this was illegal? Derek's silence was damning. Oh my God, Barbara gasped. You both knew. You made us criminals. My dad stepped forward. Barbara, Tom, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Megan has a history of bending the truth when it suits her. Bending the truth? Barbara shrieked. This is breaking and entering. This is fraud. My grandchildren are here witnessing their parents get arrested. The kids were still watching from the window, and I saw Emma start to cry. This wasn't their fault, but they were paying the price for their parents' choices. Officer Martinez addressed the group. Let's all calm down. Ms. Morrison, what would you like to do here? You're within your rights to press charges. All eyes turned to me. Megan looked terrified, Derek angry, Barbara disgusted, and my parents disappointed. The neighbors waited with their phones still recording. I need them out of my cabin, now, I said firmly. That's the minimum, Martinez confirmed. But the criminal charges? Officer Martinez squared his shoulders and addressed Megan formally. Ms. Sullivan, based on the evidence presented, video footage of breaking and entering, changing locks without permission, false statements to neighbors, and admission of knowing the owner would refuse permission, you and your husband have committed criminal trespass and breaking and entering. Megan started sobbing, real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. Ma'am, you need to vacate immediately or face arrest for trespassing, Martinez continued. Ms. Morrison has every right to press charges for breaking and entering, fraud, and theft of services. Please, Derek stepped forward. We have kids. We made a mistake, but please don't do this. Officer Brooks interjected. A mistake is forgetting to return a borrowed tool. This was planned and deliberate. You brought a U-Haul. You changed locks. You told elaborate lies to multiple people. My mom finally spoke up. Rachel, honey, maybe we can handle this as a family. We tried that, Mom, for years. Every time Megan takes advantage, you all say, handle it as a family. Well, this is me handling it. Dad put his hand on Mom's shoulder. Let Rachel decide. It's her property. Martinez looked at me. Ms. Morrison, I need to know, are you pressing charges? The weight of the moment sat heavy. Everyone was watching. The neighbors still recording. My parents holding their breath. Megan's kids crying at the window. Officer, what happens if I don't press charges? They leave immediately. But without charges, there's no legal record. No consequences beyond today. And if I do? They'll be arrested, processed, and likely released on bail. Court date to follow. Criminal record if convicted. Megan fell to her knees. Rachel, please, think of the kids. I looked at my sister on her knees, then at her kids in the window, then at the assembled crowd still recording. This moment would define our family relationships forever. Get up, Megan, I said quietly. Get up and listen very carefully. She stood slowly, wiping her face with her sleeve. My cabin sweater's sleeve. 2 hours. You have 2 hours to remove everything you brought and return my cabin to exactly how you found it. Every single item of mine goes back where it belongs. You leave my spare key on the kitchen counter. I know you found it in the fake rock. Rachel, thank you, Derek started. I'm not done. 2 hours. Leave my key. And never contact me about this cabin again. Never ask to visit. Never bring your kids here. Never mention it at family gatherings. As far as you're concerned, this cabin doesn't exist. That's cruel, Mom interjected. No, Mom. Cruel is breaking into someone's sanctuary and claiming you deserve it more. This is a boundary. Officer Martinez nodded approvingly. And if they don't comply with these terms? Then I file charges immediately. I have all the evidence saved in multiple locations. Barbara hustled toward the cabin. 2 hours. We can do 2 hours. Derek, Tom, start loading the car. Now. One more thing, I added. If there's any damage, anything missing or broken, I document it and bill you. If you don't pay within 30 days, I press charges and sue in civil court. Megan nodded frantically. Yes, okay, nothing's broken. We were careful. We'll see about that. Officer Martinez, would you mind staying while they pack? Happy to, ma'am. We'll make sure they leave peacefully. The crowd began to disperse, but everyone was still filming. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in public humiliation. The Sullivans scrambled to pack while half the neighborhood watched from their yards. Some had brought out actual lawn chairs and beverages, treating it like community theater. Megan tried to maintain some dignity, but it was impossible. Every trip to the car with armloads of their belongings was witnessed. Barbara barked orders at everyone, desperate to get out before the 2-hour deadline. Tom loaded the car in silence, his face red with embarrassment. The kids were the hardest to watch. Jaden helped carry his toys out, confused and upset. Why can't we stay at Aunt Rachel's cabin anymore? He asked his mother. Because Aunt Rachel is... Megan caught herself seeing Officer Martinez watching. Because we have to go home now. Margaret called out helpfully. There's a lovely campground about 20 miles down the mountain if you folks need a place to stay tonight. Mrs. Kim added, much more affordable than stealing someone's house. Derek's face was purple with rage and embarrassment as he carried out suitcases. At one point, he dropped a bag and clothes spilled across my driveway. The neighbors actually applauded sarcastically. 1 hour left, Officer Brooks announced. Barbara emerged with my cashmere sweater. This is Rachel's, she said, shooting a glare at Megan. I thought it was in the cabin when we... Megan started. Don't lie anymore, Barbara snapped. Just don't! My parents stood by their truck, watching silently. Dad looked disappointed, but not surprised. Mom kept wringing her hands, torn between her daughters. With 30 minutes to spare, they were loaded. The cabin door stood open, and I could see inside. It looked ransacked, but at least they were leaving. But the real consequences were just beginning. After they drove away, Officer Martinez accompanied me inside for the inspection. What I found made my stomach turn. My grandmother's antique vase was cracked and poorly glued back together. The Persian rug in the living room had a large wine stain covered by furniture. They'd moved my grandmother's photos to the garage, some frames broken. My wine collection, about $2,000 worth, was decimated. Empty bottles filled the recycling bin. They'd even moved my grandmother's photos to the garage, I said, picking up a cracked frame. In the master bedroom, my sheets were stained, and my grandmother's quilt had a burn hole from what looked like a curling iron. The bathroom tiles were chipped, where something heavy had been dropped. Document everything, Martinez advised. Photos, videos, make a list. Margaret appeared in the doorway. I have ring footage of them bringing in a keg last weekend. There was a party with about 15 people. A party. In my sanctuary. With my things. The kitchen was worse. My cast iron pans were rusted from being put in the dishwasher. The knife set was incomplete. 2 expensive Japanese knives missing. The coffee maker was broken, hidden in the pantry. I tallied it up. Between the wine, the antiques, the damage, and missing items, about $5,000. This changes things, Officer Martinez said. Theft over $5,000 is a felony in Colorado. I sat on my violated couch, in my violated sanctuary, feeling the weight of it all. They hadn't just stolen my space, they'd destroyed my peace. My phone buzzed, a text from Megan. I hope you're happy destroying your family over property. Officer Martinez read it over my shoulder. Save that. It shows no remorse, which prosecutors love. The entitlement is mind-blowing, right? They actually thought they could just take my property because I'm single. If you're still watching, you're probably as shocked as I was. Please hit subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up to toxic family members. And tell me, would you have pressed charges? The ending might surprise you. Before they left, I gathered everyone, my family, the Sullivans, and the watching neighbors, for one final confrontation. This isn't the first time. Remember Mom's jewelry, Dad's tools, I said, looking directly at Megan. 3 years ago, Mom's anniversary ring went missing during Thanksgiving. It showed up at a pawn shop. We all knew but said nothing to keep the peace. Mom gasped. That was you? Dad's power tools disappeared from the garage during Emma's birthday party. Derek sold them on Craigslist. I saw the listing, but Dad told me to let it go. Dad nodded slowly. I knew, I just hoped it would stop. The charity money from the church fundraiser I organized? $500 vanished. Megan had a sudden windfall that week for her kitchen renovation. Barbara's mouth fell open. You stole from a church? This pattern stops today, I continued. No more enabling. No more keeping the peace. No more letting family be an excuse for theft. Megan tried one last manipulation. You're really going to destroy our relationship over a cabin? You destroyed our relationship when you decided your wants mattered more than my rights. When you taught your children that taking what isn't yours is acceptable if you feel entitled to it. The neighbors murmured agreement. Mr. Chen actually applauded. From now on, I announced, any family member who asks about using my cabin will be reminded of today, of what happens when you mistake my success for your opportunity. Derek pulled Megan toward their car. We're leaving. Good. And Megan? That cease and desist letter from my lawyer will arrive within the week. Come near my property again, and I won't hesitate to press charges. The crowd watched as they drove away, their family's reputation in tatters. After the Sullivans' cars disappeared down the mountain road, Dad approached me. The neighbors had mostly dispersed, though a few lingered, pretending to check their mail or water their plants. Rachel, he said, his voice heavy with years of unspoken truth. I owe you an apology. Mom started to interject, but Dad held up his hand. No, Linda, this needs to be said. He turned to face the remaining neighbors, as if he needed witnesses for this confession. I'm done enabling this behavior. Rachel, I'm sorry. I've watched Megan take advantage of you for years. Your college fund that mysteriously depleted when Megan needed wedding money. The car you saved for that somehow became Megan's down payment. I kept telling myself it was just sisters working things out. Dad, I started, but he wasn't finished. No, let me finish. Every family gathering, we pressured you to forgive, to share, to be the bigger person. But you were always the bigger person. Megan was just the taker. His voice cracked. I failed you as a father. I taught one daughter she could take whatever she wanted and another that she had to give everything to keep the peace. Mom was crying now, but silently. From now on, Dad continued, Megan faces consequences. No more bailouts, no more excuses. And Rachel, your cabin is yours. Anyone who says otherwise can deal with me. Margaret, still in her yard, called out, About time someone said it. Dad managed a sad smile. The neighbors see it clearer than family sometimes. He hugged me then, a real hug, not the awkward side hugs we'd done for years. I'm proud of you, Rachel, for standing up for yourself. I should have stood up for you long ago. Within hours, the video went viral in our small mountain community. Margaret had posted it to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, Entitled Sister Gets Caught Red-Handed. By morning, it had over 3,000 shares. The fallout was swift and brutal. Megan's PTA friends started distancing themselves. She was removed as treasurer of the school fundraising committee. Nobody wanted someone who stole from churches handling money. The Moms Wine Club uninvited her from their weekly gatherings. Derek's construction business took a hit too. 3 clients canceled contracts after seeing the video. Can't trust someone who breaks into houses, one commented publicly on his business page. Barbara called my mom in tears. Their church congregation had seen the video. Tom was asked to step down from the board pending a review. The Women's League president suggested Barbara take a sabbatical from activities. The video went viral in our small mountain community, but the most interesting response came from unexpected sources. I received dozens of messages from other successful singles sharing similar stories. Siblings who felt entitled to vacation homes, parents who demanded access to investment properties, family members who believed that choosing career over marriage meant your assets were communal property. One message stood out. I'm a 38-year-old surgeon. My brother moved into my beach house while I was working pandemic shifts. Claimed I didn't need it since I was never there. Your story gave me courage to finally evict him. The local news picked up the story. Family feud over mountain cabin goes viral. They interviewed Margaret, who didn't hold back. That family acted like squatters. Rachel worked hard for that cabin. Being single doesn't make your property communal. Megan tried damage control, posting her own version on Facebook. The comments destroyed her. Even her friends couldn't defend breaking and entering. The Monday after the incident, I sat in my lawyer's office finalizing the cease and desist letter, but I decided to go further. I want a formal no trespass order filed with the county, I told him, and I want it to explicitly include all family members who don't have written invitation from me. He raised an eyebrow. That's quite comprehensive. This cabin is off limits to anyone I don't explicitly invite, I said firmly. I'm done with assumptions and entitlement. I also upgraded my security system. 8 cameras instead of 2, all with night vision and audio. Smart locks that could only be opened with codes I controlled. Motion sensors that alerted my phone immediately. I sent a family email that evening. To be clear, my cabin is private property. No one has implicit permission to use it. Family relation does not equal access rights. Any attempt to enter without my explicit written permission will be treated as trespassing and handled by law enforcement. This is not negotiable. Mom called immediately. Don't you think that's harsh? No, Mom. What's harsh is having to change my locks because my sister broke in. What's harsh is finding my grandmother's things destroyed. Boundaries aren't harsh, they're necessary. I also created a rental LLC for the Airbnb business, adding another legal layer of protection. The cabin was now officially a business asset, not a family resource. My therapist, whom I'd called for an emergency session, said something that stuck. You're not responsible for managing other people's feelings about your boundaries. The cease and desist was delivered to Megan that Wednesday. She texted me a photo of it with just one word. Really? I didn't respond. The boundary was the response. Monday afternoon, the Texas family arrived right on schedule, a couple with 2 teenagers. I met them at the cabin to hand over the keys and do a walkthrough, making sure everything was perfect after the weekend's drama. This place is absolutely gorgeous, the wife Sandra exclaimed. The pictures didn't do it justice. I'd spent Sunday frantically cleaning and replacing damaged items. New wine glasses, fresh linens, and my grandmother's photos back in their proper places. The cracked vase was hidden away, a reminder of the violation. We've been saving for this trip for 2 years, the husband Marcus told me. Our first real vacation since COVID. Their teenage daughter was already on the deck, taking Instagram photos of the mountain view. Their son had found the game room in the basement, something Megan's kids had thankfully not destroyed. That family's joy reminded me why I bought this place, I thought, watching them explore with genuine excitement. Sandra left a review before they even checked out. Rachel's cabin is a dream. Pristine condition, amazing views, and the perfect mountain escape. You can tell the owner truly cares about this property. 5 stars isn't enough. That review meant everything. It wasn't just about the rating. It was validation that my cabin was worth protecting, worth the ugly confrontation with family. More bookings came in immediately. A retired couple for 2 weeks in April, a writer seeking solitude for a month in May. My cabin was booked solid through summer at $300 a night. I did the math. If I maintained 70% occupancy, the cabin would generate enough passive income for me to potentially leave my stressful job within 2 years. Megan's break-in had actually pushed me to monetize properly. Financial freedom through boundaries. Who would have thought? 2 weeks later, Mom became Megan's messenger. She showed up at my Denver apartment uninvited, holding a letter. "Megan asked me to give you this," she said, looking uncomfortable. The letter was classic Megan. 3 pages of manipulation disguised as an apology. "Dear Rachel, I'm sorry you felt violated, but family should share. You have so much while we struggle. The kids miss the cabin. They don't understand why their aunt hates them now. Derek might lose his business because of that video. I hope you're satisfied with destroying your family over property. Maybe someday you'll understand when you have children of your own what it means to sacrifice for family. Megan." "I'm sorry you felt violated, but family should share," I read aloud to Mom. "She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry she got caught." Mom shifted uncomfortably. "She's having a hard time, Rachel. Derek's sleeping in the garage. The kids are being bullied at school about their parents being thieves." "And whose fault is that?" "I'm not saying it's yours, but—" "No buts, Mom. Megan taught her kids that stealing is okay if you feel entitled. Now they're learning it's not. That's parenting." Mom pulled out her phone. "She wanted me to show you this video of the kids crying, asking why Aunt Rachel hates them. That's emotional manipulation using children as weapons. I don't hate them. I hate what their parents did. There's a difference." I handed the letter back. "Tell Megan I received her non-apology. Tell her the cease and desist stands. And tell her that using you as a go-between violates the spirit of that order." Mom left, defeated. But I noticed she didn't defend Megan as vigorously as before. Progress. Thanksgiving came 7 months after the cabin incident. For the first time in 15 years, Megan wasn't at our parents' table. She'd been explicitly disinvited after threatening to bring a lawyer to dinner to discuss Rachel's theft of family property. The atmosphere was surreal, lighter yet tinged with sadness. We could actually hear each other talk without Megan's kids running wild or Derek's sullen presence darkening the room. "It's quieter, but more peaceful, isn't it?" Mom said, passing the green beans. My cousin Sarah, who'd driven up from New Mexico, was the first to address the elephant not in the room. "I have to say, holidays are actually enjoyable without the Megan drama." "Sarah," Mom admonished, but weakly. "What? We're all thinking it. Remember last year when she threw a fit because Rachel's turkey was better than hers? Or when she borrowed Grandma's ring from Mom's jewelry box and claimed she was promised it?" Dad carved the turkey in silence, but I saw him nod slightly. My Aunt Patricia chimed in. "I wasn't going to say anything, but Megan called me asking for a loan last month, said you all had abandoned her over a misunderstanding about the cabin." "A misunderstanding?" I laughed. "She broke in, changed the locks, and lived there for 2 weeks." "That's what I told her," Patricia said. "She hung up on me." The conversation shifted to other topics: Sarah's promotion, Patricia's retirement plans, Dad's new woodworking hobby. Normal family conversations without Megan's constant need for attention or Derek's defensive anger. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. "This was nice. Peaceful. I'm sorry it took so long to get here." "Me too, Dad, me too." A week before Christmas, I finally made it back to my cabin alone. The Texas Families Review had brought a stream of bookings, but I'd blocked off this week for myself. The retreat I'd originally planned 9 months ago. I sat on the deck with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The silence was perfect. No family drama, no work emails, just me and my hard-earned peace. The cabin felt mine again. I'd replaced all the damaged items, but more importantly, I'd reclaimed the emotional space. This wasn't just property. It was proof that I could set boundaries and enforce them, even against family. Family doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Love includes boundaries, I said aloud to the mountains, testing how the words felt. They felt true. My therapist had been right. The guilt I'd carried about being selfish was really about being trained to prioritize everyone else's needs above my own. Megan hadn't just broken into my cabin, she'd assumed her needs automatically outweighed my rights. I thought about the kids, Jaden and Emma. I did feel bad for them, but not guilty. They were learning a hard lesson about consequences because their parents had never learned it themselves. Maybe this would help them grow up better adjusted than their mother. My phone buzzed with a booking request for New Year's week. A family reunion, offering premium pricing. I accepted it immediately. My cabin was working for me now, generating income and joy for families who respected it. I pulled out my journal. Yes, I'd finally started that meditation journaling, and wrote, "Success isn't selfish, boundaries aren't cruel, and family doesn't mean accepting theft with a smile." The mountains didn't judge. They just stood there, solid and unmovable, like the boundaries I'd finally learned to set. 6 months later, I was reviewing my Airbnb earnings when Mom called with news that shouldn't have surprised me but did. "Derek filed for separation," she said quietly. "He's claiming Megan's criminal behavior destroyed his business and reputation." The irony was thick. Derek, who'd helped break in, was now playing victim. But I understood. Megan's entitlement had probably poisoned their marriage long before the cabin incident. "He wants to know if you'll write a statement saying he was manipulated by Megan," Mom continued. "No, he was there. He changed my locks. He's an adult who made choices." Meanwhile, my cabin business was thriving. I'd made enough to pay off my car and start a savings fund for early retirement. The cabin that Megan claimed I didn't need was becoming my path to financial freedom. Margaret emailed me an article from the local paper. "Mountain Community Stands Against Entitled Family Members." My story had inspired others to set boundaries with toxic relatives. 3 other property owners had shared similar experiences in the comments. Megan had moved back in with our parents, working part-time at a grocery store. The kids visited Derek every other weekend. The family that had tried to steal my sanctuary had imploded from their own entitlement. Dad called last week. "Megan wants to apologize. Really apologize this time. She's been in therapy." Good for her. But my boundary stands. The cabin is off limits. Forever. "I understand," he said. And I believed he did. Sometimes losing toxic people is actually winning your life back. My cabin taught me that. It stands there in the mountains, a testament to hard work, boundaries, and the radical idea that single women deserve their success without apology. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to set hard boundaries with entitled family members, you know how difficult but necessary it is. What would you have done differently? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up for yourself. Remember, your property, your rules, your boundaries, stay strong.